It's Friday again, and here we are, having a bit of tipple with mates, trying to solve the world's problems, and as usual, talking about things we have no idea about and we have no business trying to solve. Before we go into the business of the day, gents, what are we having? Are you wearing a viscose shirt?
Viscose? What the heck is that? No, I mean, it's spring is upon us, so, I thought I'd bring a bit of color, and here I am. I don't know if you guys dress for the seasons.
No.
It's reminiscent of the 1990s Sungura musician. Dare I say, I'm tempted to start singing Mugoe or some other
Really, George?
Anyway, in white pants. Yeah, we thought we had tamed you. But anyway, okay, what are you drinking today?
Okay, so today I'm having rooibos from South Africa, from the shrub Fynbos in Western Cape. And yeah, again with spring, I think it's the right beverage to cool me down.
Hot beverages when it's getting warm? When it's getting hot?
Clearly you didn't study biology, but I won't blame you.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. We're done with that. Now to serious business.
Yes, as always, we're drinking something much more interesting than Tinashe. And today we have this very peaty scotch, unchill filtered. I don't know whether you know anything about peat and peatiness in whiskey.
Do you know anything about anyway, no, carry on.
But I know one thing.
Get you drunk.
No, I shouldn't include an E. I got a lecture the one time in how I spell whiskey.
So this is a peaty whiskey. It's got this organic compound called phenol. It's got 40 parts per million. And basically the way they infuse this into the whiskey is when they dry the barley before they ferment it, they smoke it with peat to dry it. So it absorbs the peaty flavor from the smoke, and it retains this all the way through distillation and maturation.
Well, it's very strong. I can
so
smell it from
it
I can actually smell it.
So it's
as you're pouring, you are aware that this is 50%, right?
Yes, I am.
So pace yourself accordingly.
So yeah, again, kudos to George who selected this bottle.
Well, taste it first.
It's very peaty, very peaty.
It's actually coming out your nose.
and I have a lousy sense of smell, but I can actually.
Yeah, I can smell it from here. It's very strong.
I like it. I think we're gonna have a good show.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, the SDRs are here. Some viewers would remember that our very first episode 1 of season 1, we talked about what SDRs are. But at the time, it was a very geeky conversation that probably most people didn't pay attention to. So, but I know it's mainstream now. Everybody's talking about it. So, Nasha, without going into too much of a lecture, would you maybe do a recap?
Thank you, George. SDRs, that's special drawing, right? It's an IMF currency. And yes, indeed, they are printing, and they're printing about $650 billion worth of these. They've got an exchange rate with the US dollar, and the exchange rate is 1.4. So we are getting somewhere around 650, which will come to 961 million US dollars that we are receiving.
So SDRs are not money.
It is money. It's an IMF currency. Remember, we live in a fiat world where anyone can issue currency, but someone as dominant and as somebody who's quite in the monetary system as the IMF can issue SDRs or its own currency that actually has value that you can buy and sell with. But
A quick geeky segue. If every country in the world is getting an SDR, why are they worth anything? Like if every country is getting SDRs in proportion to their ownership in the or shareholding in the IMF, how are these things worth anything?
You're actually quite right.
If I were to issue, a Rufaro dollar to the three of us, and and we were the only players in the economy, why would that be worth anything?
You're quite right, and that's actually a good understanding of economics. What tends to happen is we have a lot of economists, especially Keynesians, that actually believe that in times of distress or in times of a pandemic like we have, or previously in times of a financial crisis, that injecting this money would somewhat induce or increase the demand in the world. But you're quite right, because the effect of them in the global economics is such that they will push prices up. So, and that's one of the risks that a country like Zimbabwe or net importers will have problems with. You start importing inflation, because if you just increase the amount of money in the global economy, the first thing that's going to happen is world prices are going to go up.
So,
but
like we're seeing all-time highs in commodity prices now.
Commodity prices,
It's
it's primarily because of the printing of money. But as with any occasion when governments and multilateral institutions print, there's always an opportunity there. And I think there's certain businesses or certain countries that will take advantage of the printing and come out the better of it. But there are also certain governments or certain countries that will come out worse of it. And I think the IMF was at great pains, I think more than 100 pages, trying to explain how and the guidelines on what you should do with the SDRs.
Highlights, what did they say?
Well, the first thing is it doesn't solve any instability or any macroeconomic problems that you already have, right? Okay. They could actually exacerbate, and it stops reforms. They actually pick this as a risk and say, well, the minute you have SDRs, countries that were on a debt restructuring or some sort of hard economic reforms will sort of, kick it down.
So basically, if as an economy we're behaving badly, this money basically buys us time to continue behaving badly instead of actually executing difficult
list
reforms.
Of your worries. What tends to happen, or maybe you guys, because you're alcoholics, you might understand.
Alcoholics.
You might understand this, is that drunkards, if you give a drunkard money, what do you expect to happen? Do you think he's going to drink more in the future, or he's just going to waste it immediately? And that's the problem you have with countries that were already under distress, that this money actually exacerbates the distress and the fault lines in the economy. We've all heard of the Dutch disease, right? And this is part of
what is the Dutch disease, by the way?
Well, it's when
he's just learning to write.
It's when macroeconomic fundamentals switch in one way, and it tends to be commodities. So when commodity prices go up, and the entire economy takes that as a signal to change or to switch and focus on exports in that particular commodity. And then what happens is, after a period of time when the commodity prices crash, you find that your entire economy was now overly reliant on that.
But doesn't the IMF...
So in this, the Dutch disease in this, it's if you're overly reliant on aid, on this SDR that comes in today, mm-hmm. and your economy and the structure of economy switches to suit the SDR, and I've been on record to say that the SDR in Zimbabwe will actually stimulate imports. So you find a lot more people will start importing because the money is there.
No, I get you. I hear
but what happens a year or 2 years later when you don't have those SDRs?
So what vexes me is, I know for a fact that the IMF is one of those institutions that employs heavily credentialed people with master's degrees and doctorates. So how do they sit around a table and decide that the best way to help member states is to just dish out this free money? I don't get the.
We live in a liberal world, and that certainly plays into it. And liberals are very big on aid. So they look at the COVID pandemic and they look at how distressed the developing countries are. And their answer is, why don't we print money and then just give it to them?
So, but why didn't we print money and only give the poor countries? Why did we print money and give everyone? And if it's in proportion to your shareholding in the IMF, the rich guys got more than the poor guys.
Well, effectively, that's what's going to happen, because actually the rich guys are actually giving their credits to the poor countries. That's actually what's going to happen.
Are we going to get them?
No, well, we've been behaving badly, unfortunately. And that brings in another complexity. So we know that as of the 23rd of August, our account was credited with SDRs. Now, ideally,
IMF.
Are these cleared funds in a bank account or the SDRs?
These are Rufaro dollars.
So these are Rufaro dollars.
So I can't go into Pick and Pay and swipe with them.
So him and I have done a trade in our bank of Rufaro, and I now have Rufaro dollars.
Yeah.
So how do you convert that to real money?
You need to find a friendly country. So this is where
we have lots
Zimbabwe.
of friends.
Well, we owe all our friends.
So if we go to them and ask them to change our Rufaro dollars into US dollars, they'll do it,
but at a discount.
And
offset against their loans. That's likely to happen. So
what are we going to do with our?
So I think the Ministry of Finance should be very clear on who's discounting, if there's any discount, or who are we actually trading our SDRs with? Because that's very important, and that's a good market signal for us. Because we know that right now, at the current exchange rate, it's 961. But will it truly be 961?
Which exchange rate? The 85 or 145?
No, to the US dollars.
Ah, okay.
Right. SDRs to US dollars. But basically you're saying, okay, so you arrive in Baremsika with your tomatoes, but you owe all the other traders. And now you're walking around Bare with this box of tomatoes, trying to avoid selling it to anyone that you owe. And looking for one person that you don't owe who's going to give you a fair price. But everybody knows you can't sell it to anybody else. So what kind of price are you likely to get for these?
No, we're definitely going to get a discount. I think that's clear. What's unknown is how big the discount is going to be and whether we'll ever actually know what the discount was on that trade.
I wonder if we'll ever know who we traded with.
I think in the interest of transparency, and the IMF has come out and said we must be extremely transparent with this. I think that it would be good for the central bank and the Ministry of Finance to let us know and to give us the details.
Okay, so there's a pretty good chance money is coming. How much it will be, we'll see. But it seems the rate is on the march again. I'm being asked to swipe in shops at a rate that is higher than I was being asked to swipe a couple of weeks ago. The ZSE is in a bearish mood. It's a bit depressed. What's going on? Why isn't everybody euphoric that money is coming? Using a household example, yes, we've been behaving badly. Daddy's been overspending, but Dad's got a loan. Or Dad's got some money from somewhere. Manna
from heaven, a grant. Yeah. It's not a loan. It doesn't have to be repaid.
So why are we sad?
Well, I think...
I'm not sad. But
well, the markets, he means the markets. To be very clear, Zimbabwe has a dual economy. I think we've spoken about this numerous times. And this is the impact of a dual economy. Not just a dual economy, but a currency that's overvalued. So at the official rate, our currency is overvalued. And then you have a dual economy where you have US dollars and Zim dollars. Now I ask you, if you get an injection in US dollars, what should happen? Now, in a rational market, what should happen is those US dollars will say, well, should I chase after Zim dollars? And if I chase after Zim dollars, I'm only getting the Zim dollars at a rate of 85, when I could possibly get a whole lot more. Or should I buy goods offshore that are worth my $1? No discount at all. So this is what happens in a dual economy. In a dual economy, when you inject US dollars, the participants in the economy will huddle around the US dollars and keep the US dollars and say, you know what, I'm not going to get into the Zim dollars and I'm just going to keep the US dollars.
Actually, that's very complicated. People should just be happy. And I'm not seeing the euphoria.
No, I'm just saying that there are certain people who are happy.
Or maybe
importers.
Everybody on the street, all the kids should be happy. There's money coming, there's manna coming. Dad's sorted out our problem, even if it's only for 2 days. But Dad sorted out our problem. There should be some relief. There should be some joy.
There is.
So maybe what the market is telling us, because you'd expect that if there's a whole bunch of money coming into the economy, the power market rate would pull back in anticipation, like we've seen the kwacha strengthen on the back of the announcement of these SDRs. So maybe what the market is telling us is that this $961 million is not going to move the needle, because we have so much debt, we have this backlog at the auction, we have all these problems that we need to pay for, and when this money comes in, it's going to dissipate into all these holes without the rest of us actually feeling its impact.
I beg to differ. I think it will actually move the needle, but it will not move the needle in the Zim dollar economy. It will move the needle in the US dollar economy, because there will be an increase in expenditure within the US dollar economy.
But you're the one who always says, "Oh, let's look at data. Let's look at data. Let's look at data."
Yeah.
This is.
Do I sound like it?
Well,
No.
it's not more like this. You got less than $1 billion coming in a 17 billion economy.
Yeah.
6%.
In the overall economy, it's not going to move the needle. But imagine an importer. Imagine a guy who is on the auction. And this is what happened on Tuesday with the announcement. We've seen the announcement where even the SMEs on the auction, they are now getting 15 million. The auction is now
Tuesday was it right?
allocated. Yeah, it's like 51, 52 million. So if you're an importer, it's moving the needle and you're getting it at a discount. You're getting currency at a discount.
So why aren't stocks appreciating? Why is it general morose?
Because it's very particular. The guys who are going to benefit are the importers. But the general economy, in fact, it makes our economy worse off. This is the Dutch disease, that the exporters in that particular period make a lot of money because commodity prices are up, and everybody who was not an exporter then moves. So the economic structure, everybody is moving, becoming an importer.
The importers are going to benefit because there's a few more US dollars in the market.
At a discount?
The exporters are going to be penalized because of this huge difference between the official and the parallel exchange, which the governor himself spoke about over the last week.
Absolutely.
So what would you do if you were in charge? And it was
do
up
you
to
really
you.
want to ask that question?
Yes.
Okay, currency board.
Okay. My bad. I shouldn't have asked that question.
But I think we'll let him go down that rabbit hole. Maybe at the end of the show, if the producer allows us, we will do a rabbit hole on the currency board. But for now, shall we go for a short break?
Sure.
Bathroom? Nose? See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. Before we went away, we were exploring the SDRs and why they're not having an impact on the economy. We also touched on the rate, which is moving, and the gap between official and parallel is yawning. And this is no longer speculation. The governor has acknowledged this himself. He's attributed it to Zimbabweans having a preference for the US dollar over the Zim dollar.
I wonder why that is.
But over the past few weeks, we have seen significant movements. We've seen the rate go from about 120-ish to now maybe about 145-ish, 150-ish.
Yep.
And it seems as if every week is bringing with it a new street rate. What's causing this?
In a word, printing. It amazes me that we actually have conversations about what's happening with what's driving the rate. There's only one institution in this country that has the capacity to increase money supply, and it is only money supply, more Zim dollars chasing few US dollars, that moves the rate. If we stopped printing forthwith, the rate would stop moving.
But Mtuli's midterm review suggested that we're not printing too badly.
I think the important thing is not what pronouncements are made, but what the action taken by Treasury, the action taken by the central bank. I mean, earlier in the year, we had this exciting pronouncement about a phenomenal agricultural season with 2.7 million tons of maize, projected to be delivered to the GMB, and so far we've done less than 1 million. So okay, I understand that making forecasts is hard. There's a famous physicist, Nobel laureate, Niels Bohr. There's a quip from him that it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. So, probably there are many people in the business of making forecasts in our state bureaucracy that are not as smart as Niels Bohr. And
I don't know. When you're arresting anyone, please, I don't know this guy.
So we have to empathize with them that they're going to get some forecasts wrong.
But the margin is huge, eh? In this particular instance, eh? We're probably at the end of the harvest.
Are we? Maybe George, you could speak
as
to
the resident farmer.
What typically happens?
So typically, you've got your. Let's talk about the commercial farmer.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about the commercial and the communal farmer. Communal farmer is simple. He puts his maize down early December to mid-December, does his 120 days, which takes him up until about April. And he looks at it, he thinks it looks dry, spends half of winter, maybe May, June, taking it out and putting it on his roof or wherever he puts it out to dry. But he's usually done by about May, June. Primarily because there is a thing that happens in communal areas that you might be familiar with called Kusai Ziramombe. So there's a date in every village where the Saboko announces that you don't have to herd your cattle anymore, they can wander. So everybody races against that date to get their crop out of the field. So generally, by midwinter, communal farmers are done. Commercial farmers have the pressure of a wheat planting date. So they generally need to have their crop out, again, by about early June. Otherwise, it's too late to put their wheat down. Sometimes the humidity on the crop delays them because the GMB will only take bulk maize with a certain level of humidity and below. So, but there's generally a deadline by which you must get it out if you want to put a winter crop down. If you're not doing a winter crop, you have a bit more of leeway, but you still have a hard deadline by which time you need to start preparing your land for your summer crop. And as we speak now, as we get to the end of August, everybody's servicing their tractors and their implements to make sure that latest second week of September, those tractors are preparing the land for an October planting of maize. If you're doing irrigated tobacco, you're actually wanting to plant by 1 September. So those lands must be clear. Mm-hmm. So it's unlikely that very many farmers still have maize on the land by late August.
Could they have it in storage though?
Very few farmers have the kind of storage you need for that, especially commercial farmers. You'll see that most commercial farmers are harvesting straight into a truck. If you drive around the country, you'll see a 30-ton truck driving next to a combine harvester. They're harvesting straight into the combine, into the truck, and the truck is actually going to GMB. Okay. And another truck comes and drives alongside the combine harvester, and they do it that way. Whereas, I mean,
if you were to look into your crystal ball, we've delivered about 800,000.
It's 780.
780.
I won't comment on the numbers, but I would say I don't think there's a lot of maize still on the land.
Okay. Well, I think I can comment on the economics. And commenting on the economics, if you see the rate going, remember these farmers are getting RTGS. Mm-hmm. Why would a farmer still hold on to their maize when they know that as as long as the rate is moving, they're getting less in US dollars.
Okay, so the incentive is to offload it as quickly as possible.
Yes. The money, RTGS is losing value, but also the window to prepare for the next.
So basically,
crop is
what
closing.
the both of you are saying is that we are not going to see significant higher delivery, further deliveries.
Unless someone knows something that
Look,
we don't know.
there could be extraneous circumstances. In the past, we've had shortages of combine harvesters, for example, which have meant that the crop stays on the land a bit longer while everybody's waiting for their turn. I don't know if that's a factor this year. Maybe. There could be one or two other factors. But all other things being equal, everybody would have wanted their maize out. They want to be in their queue to get their GMB payment so that they can buy whatever they need to and they can use that land for something else.
This might be an anecdote, but George, you could speak more to this. I've heard...
I'm not the president of the CFU.
Well, you know a little bit
farmer.
more than, but I've heard because
You're a
I've asked
resident
around.
farmer.
You are a resident farmer. I've asked around, and there are some villagers or communal farmers who are holding on to their crop because they actually speculate that come December there'll be shortages and they'll be able to get US dollars for their crop. Because for a communal farmer, they would know within that village whether there has been an excess or there's actually a deficit.
I think it's probably true, but this wouldn't be unusual. This is a normal trading pattern for communal farmers. During the harvest, everybody has. Price comes down to about $3 a bucket, depending on where in the country you are. By mid-rainy season, most people are short. Price goes to about $6. This has been the trend for...
But we were expecting an excess, right? Because we were expecting 2.7.
Yeah, but remember-
Well, we made a forecast that is clearly not comporting well with the data. So I think that it's a game changer because we were talking about agriculture making a significant contribution to GDP growth this year, growing from 11% to 34%. So if our forecast for maize, the major crop, is off, in such a big way, then we have a problem.
Well, I don't know if we are yet at a point where we can extrapolate that finding to the GDP because we don't yet have figures for the winter wheat. We don't have figures for what's happening in horticulture.
He's just
Just
talking
maize.
about
I'm just talking about maize.
Just maize, because if you're expecting, GMB is expecting 1.8 and the total crop is expecting 2.7. And if you're nowhere near half of the 1.8 that GMB is expecting, what he's saying is, do you think we'll get to 1.8? Because if we don't, it has an adverse impact on our GDP.
And if you're doing such a great job on such an important forecast, then what are the chances that your other forecasts are accurate?
Yeah, but they could be inaccurate both ways.
Okay.
What do you think?
Generally, I never get pleasant surprises when it comes to forecasts. But yeah, look, I still think it's a bit early to try and gauge the impact. But yeah, let's wait and see. Let's see what's happening with the other crops. Let's see what's happening in other sectors of agriculture. You don't like anecdotes, but I drive on the highways quite a lot. I've seen more wheat on the ground than I have for a very, very long time. As you know, I trade vegetables. The horticulture market is depressed. It's difficult to get figures, but my suspicion is a big part of why the prices are depressed.
But gentlemen,
is oversupply.
We don't have to speculate, right? We have a long, well-documented history of forecasts from the government over the last 10, 20, 30 years. And what is consistent in those forecasts is that they tend to err on the side of optimism. And I don't think that...
Well, the tobacco forecast for this season has gone the other way. The tobacco crop has outperformed. You probably know the figures better than I do, the percentages. But I think we're now approaching 210, and I think we were forecasting less than 200 million kgs.
No. I think the issue with tobacco is not the production. The issue...
We're just talking about the forecast.
Well, remember, a lot of the tobacco farmers hold back their tobacco from the previous year, and then they sell it in the coming year.
No, I'm just saying that if the forecasts don't always go wrong in the same direction. Sometimes they go wrong in a different direction.
I think that's an exception. I don't think it's typical. I think for the most part, the focus on the side of optimism. So we were talking about reining in inflation in a year in which the local currency lost more than 80% of its value. I mean, these are the kind of forecasts that we typically make in this part of the world. So I'm not being...
Mutili, I'm a good guy. I don't know these guys.
So I'm not being overly harsh. I think that it's in the public record what the focus have been and what has panned out in reality. And I think for maize, our staple, the crop that we have focused on in terms of supporting, the smaller farmers, for us to get it wrong on such a hectic scale, it's cause for concern, and it calls into question the seriousness with which we should take other pronouncements about the economy.
I tend to agree with that.
You guys are in agreement?
I've got nothing more to add to that.
You guys are in agreement? But okay. Moving on a little bit, I think what would be interesting though is for somebody to do the numbers and work backwards what each ton of maize has cost us in foreign currency and compare that with the cost of just importing maize. It'll be interesting to see whether it's worth our while continuing to grow maize on this kind of scale.
I can tell you, it's not. We do not have any competitive advantage whatsoever
I think
in building.
I think the fumes are getting to you.
It might be. But, Malawi, Zambia produce way more than we do. And always they produce in excess than we do. And I think that because it's a staple food right across Africa, let other governments subsidize their farmers, and we shouldn't. Right? And we just buy off from Malawi, from Zambia. And I always ask, what's going to happen under free trade when, 2024 happens and we're producing...
So you actually believe this free trade is going to happen in 2024?
Well, I think it will happen. I'm not so sure that it will happen when they say it will happen. That's in 2024. But it might be a delay for another year or 2 years. But it will happen. Because when you read through and who the biggest promoters are, these are our big African countries. They're the ones who are really promoting this. So it will happen. If South Africa says it will happen, I think it will happen. But I think we're going to be caught.
You know that COMESA is functional as a free trade area, as a SADC.
There are a lot more barriers.
In my family's little businesses, we import things within SADC and within COMESA, and we don't pay duties.
But do you know that South Africa is not part of COMESA?
No, it's not, but it's part of SADC. Okay, this is
so,
say we're all heading towards unifying the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But
I'm hearing a lot of wishful thinking here.
No, this no, Rufaro, if you import raw materials from South Africa or any other SADC country, you do not pay duties. This is reality on the ground.
Yeah, but most of our imports are not raw materials, sadly.
They're actually from South Africa. But the point I would want to ask Rufaro is, do you believe that the free trade will not happen?
Look, I want it to happen. I think it's it would be fantastic if it happened.
Do I sense a rabbit hole coming up?
I just don't.
Let's hear what he's.
I just don't have a lot of faith and confidence in the capacity of SADC or COMESA to get anything done.
You're on record as saying this is like herding chickens. Okay, before we go for a break, one last one that I'd like you guys to comment on. Abattoirs have come together and said they can't find cattle. There's a shortage of animals to slaughter in the country. What do you make of that?
Are they paying US dollars or are they paying RTGS?
Well, they're probably paying in the legal currency of the country.
Both US and RTGS are legal currency of the country.
So how is agriculture thriving? Okay, I don't understand. Okay, our maize forecast is materially off. We have a shortage of cows.
I mean, the question is, do we have a shortage of cows? Because the LMAC, the livestock meat, whatever LMAC stands for.
Yeah, they're saying it's actually increased.
Or something. They say the cattle are there.
Yeah,
but people don't want to sell.
Yeah, well, abattoirs are in the business of buying cattle, right?
Yeah.
So how are they
increase the price?
So
people still don't want to sell.
No, that's not possible.
No,
If it's a market,
the price of beef is not cheap at the moment.
no, if it's a market, then the price, you just increase the price.
When you increase the price, supply increases.
Supply
It's
increases.
That's simple.
But it's not happening.
Yeah, so somebody's not telling us
The truth.
The
I
truth.
suspect it's the RTGS phenomena. The people are just holding back.
So yeah, people view it as a store value. Well, the
It
farmers
is.
view it as a store value, so they don't let it go. So could this be the same thing that's happened to the maize? That perhaps the 2.7
Well,
million
the
tons of maize
difference.
are there. They just
Well, the difference
not been
between
sold.
maize and cattle is this: if maize there is an oversupply, there's no reason why you should hold. You're only holding if you think that there's a deficit. Whereas with cattle, you could hold your cattle for the next 3-4 years, and you still
but remember,
can.
the government has underwritten the minimum price of the maize.
in a currency that stores value, or in a currency that doesn't.
In the currency of your debt, if you're a command farmer.
Yeah. No, but what I mean is, if there's a deficit, you would certainly find buyers in US dollars of the maize.
illegal.
Yeah, but that has never stopped people in
No,
Zimbabwe.
right now, if you try and go past a roadblock with 5 bags of maize, they take them away.
It has not stopped people from trading in
Are
Zimbabwe.
you advocating illegal things?
No, I'm not, but I'm just being pragmatic.
He's calling a spade a spade.
Yeah. It has never stopped people.
Maybe this is a good time to go for another break before Tinashe incriminates himself. See you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. Rufaro, how come your drink doesn't seem to be subsiding?
It's called refilling.
And your, but your mood is levitating.
I think that's the general idea, to get happier.
All right. So, yeah, it is the end of the week, and we have lots of problems. Being serious is not going to solve them
Nope.
at all.
No.
So in the press, there's a company that sells power to ZESA from hydro plants and solar plants called Nyangani Energy or something like that. They've got power plants in the region. They've taken ZESA to the international. I'm just saying International Criminal Court. No, it's not.
It's taking effect.
It's the International Chamber of Commerce for arbitration on currency issues. We don't have the details, but it smells like ZESA is trying to pay them at a gauge type of rate. What do you make of this?
I think they're going to, some lawyers somewhere are going to make a bunch of money, and this company isn't going to be better off when all is said and done. Because let's say they get a ruling that's in their favor, that says ZESA owes them X amount of US dollars. Does that increase in any way the amount of US dollars that will eventually end up coming to them?
No, but they spent US dollars. I think, to me, it's testimony of what's going to happen in the next coming few years. Because when you look at the legacy debt and block funds, you have lots of people like this who were creditors or investors who put in their money and were given one-to-one geje, and central bank took over those loans. But nothing has happened in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think this is now those creditors trying to ensure that they get their money back.
But Mtuli,
And I think
Bloomberg says Mtuli wants to use half of the SDRs currency stability. I suspect some of it will.
No. What Ntuli is looking at is maintaining the exchange rate at 85. That's what they're keen on, right? That's why you find the allocation, the auction allocation is actually increased. And that's the maintaining the rate of 85. So it's giving more people, more importers, but not really dealing with the legacy issues. And the legacy issues now are coming home to roost. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Zimbabwe, as a debtor nation, has been in arrears for decades now.
To multilateral institutions.
Yes, exactly. That's the difference. The difference is when the central bank and the government of Zimbabwe took over private debt There's some company, and it's interesting that this is a Malawian company. There's
It's
some
not Malawian. It's got investments in Zimbabwe and Malawi.
and Malawi. Okay, but you have lots of people who've put their money in Zim, and perhaps it's a lot of money, and they need it for their own sustenance, especially post-COVID. And now they're trying to get their money
I mean, you know,
back, which is quite different from the IMF lending you money.
No, but
you could be running a small family business in South Africa, supplying the tiniest thing to Pick and Pay, these boxes to Tanganda, and Tanganda is your biggest customer, and then you're told all of a sudden your debt is converted to Zim dollars. Are you going to roll over and die?
No, and the RBZ took it over. So when the RBZ took it over, you thought, well, there's a resolution there. But this thing has been hanging for the last 3-4 years. What will you do?
this is what I love about private enterprise. Okay, profit, right? You're the economist, right? So you're well aware that profit, the definition of profit is reward for taking risk. So they took a risk. So all of these business people who brought their hard-earned hard currency into Zimbabwe, made investments, toiled to build businesses to export into this market, they were taking risk because they made an assessment that they were going to make a return that excited them. And what this position of their what they owed being converted to Zim dollars, what that tells us is that they got it wrong.
Well,
But are they going to accept it? Are they going to roll over and die and be like, oh, well, I lost some money in Zimbabwe. and
beyond that, let me just reply to that. Would you then still continue to trade with Zimbabwe? So you took a risk and it's gone badly. And this is 2.8 billion worth of risk, according to your measure and to your logic. Should this 2.8 billion worth of creditors, should they continue to give money to Zim?
Will they?
Will they?
Of course they're not.
And what will they
So
tell
what's
their,
the impact?
What are they going to tell their friends when they have drinks on Friday?
Exactly.
Oh, you know, a friend walks
So
in, oh, I just spoke to this
The
company in
risk
Zimbabwe.
premium, the risk premium in Zimbabwe just goes up.
Yeah, but I think you guys are
And
changing. I think you guys are changing the subject.
No, that's the subject.
What we're talking about,
The 6-year-old is keeping us on.
what we're talking about is a business that took a view on Zimbabwe, either to export into Zimbabwe or to try and build a business here. And
they were not investors.
they thought they were going to earn an exciting return. They did not.
The 2.8 billion, some of them were just creditors.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
we're making that issue.
but let me finish.
No, we're not talking
Can I
about
make my?
legacy, 'cause he's-
because
what are you
he's
talking
more
about?
interested
the
in
I'm
energy
talking about the energy company, right?
Yes.
So my response is specific to that business and businesses in that position where they have exposure to Zim, they owed money from Zim, right? And it's clearly not moving, right? So the question that they should be asking, in my view, is at what point do you cut your losses? At what point is pursuing this through some international arbitrage court throwing good money after bad? And if it were, so my opinion is that,
Vanyura.
yeah, he lost.
How many businesses have thrown such loans to a debt collector?
I'm glad you do not manage a business in which I'm invested.
Yeah. I mean, it's thrown to debt collectors.
You sell it. You sell it to vultures.
Exactly. And the debt collector is the one who's going to go after.
So let's look at the historical record. For how many years has Zim been in default with international creditors?
But
No,
multilateral
this
creditors,
is
not
far
private.
different. This is not politics. This is business.
No. This is always business that I'm talking
Okay,
about.
so let me give you a good example. A good example is with bilateral agreements that we had, PIPAs,
Yeah.
right? What then happened with the German farmers? You see, with the German government, you could
Von
get
Petzold-
away with it.
But right now, the Von Petzold family doesn't need to farm. They just need to collect their debt.
And good luck to them.
They owe a couple of
what are
$100 million, which will be enforced by the...
and they will collect it when and how?
No, the government of Zimbabwe had to pay and has been paying. Because when it's private institutions, it's quite different. So having a German creditor...
So are the
is
two of you making the
fundamentally
case? Are the two of you making the case that the Zimbabwean
Why are you saying
government?
that with a cheeky smile?
Yes. Well, it is a cheeky question that I'm about to pose. Are the two of you guys making the case that on the government's list of international creditors, there are no private individuals or
They
companies.
are now. They've assumed 10 billion of them.
It's 2.8 billion.
Or 10 billion.
And so
They're the ones who are going to be quite a nuisance.
and
to this model
and your
government.
proposition is that because they are private, they are more likely to get paid.
No, because they're private, they're likely to take their issues to international
And then get
arbitration
paid.
and make such a noise. Yes, eventually they will. Just like the farmers.
Remind me never to lend you money.
That's hilarious.
The European farmers got paid.
Yeah, look, I think they were particularly lucky.
The white farmers are getting paid. Well, we're trying to find money to pay them.
$3.5 billion to pay them for improvement.
And we will pay them.
And you believe they're going to get paid?
Yes, it might not be with this administration, but at some point in our future, we're going to have to settle those debts. And that's the problem with private.
And that future has been happening for how long? It's been pending for how long?
Okay, so what typically happens, and you had picked it up, I'm surprised you're changing goals
No, he's
now.
got a good point.
No, what I mean is, what tends to happen with a lot of these private creditors is that they will sell their debt to somebody who's willing to wait for even 100 years.
And they may well have to wait for 100 years.
And it's perfectly fine. It will be discounted. You can discount. That's what financial markets are there to do. But you can perfectly discount.
But what happened?
the debt.
I'm trying to remember which African country went through this.
Zambia.
A few years. Zambia. What
Zambia
happened
went through
is they sold it to a vulture, and the vulture just went on a rampage. Attaching, they'll attach embassies, they'll attach planes.
And that's what it happened to
I'm
Zimbabwe
vexed
as well.
by your.
Yes, we got a plane attached once.
Attached. And that's the problem with the private
I'm
investors.
vexed by your worldview, gentlemen. Are you familiar with the case of Argentina?
Yes.
How many years have they defaulted, written off?
No, but then they
Those
actually,
are multilateral debts. So
and
you have to be very careful.
Argentina restructures.
And pays.
They keep going through the cycle. Yes, they don't. They've got an advantage that they've got this on their side.
Really? You think?
Yes,
are you using the race card?
Well, they do. Have,
No, I think their advantage is they have a changing government. They've got the Zambian problem. So,
What is the
best way-
Zambian problem?
The best way to restructure debt is to change government.
send a new guy. That's true.
Oh, and you say, oh, that was that guy's problem.
That was that guy's problem.
That had nothing to do with me. I'm honorable.
Yeah,
exactly.
I can
That's
say
the
in my experience as a
Argentinian
bank, it works. It works. When a new guy comes in, you're like, okay, so tell us your story.
That's the Argentinian problem.
I should go into banking.
Okay, so anyway, going back to this power company. So is this
If I was
private-
advising them, if
private
I was advising them, I would say, guys, write this off, move on with your lives.
According to accounting rules, they probably have done so, but they're not going to let it go.
But the bigger question, will this model of independent power producers work?
Not when you're supplying to a state-run entity. That's my personal view. The idea is to disaggregate, have individual, where you supply to a particular corporate or particular individuals, and you don't have to go through
The national grid.
the national grid.
Look, guys,
To me, that's the model that works.
building electricity infrastructure is not rocket science.
You think so?
You know,
Like you can build a grid.
the rest of the world figured this out at the turn of the century. Not 2000, in 1900. They were figuring this out. They were sorting it out. So we've had 40 years to sort out our power infrastructure, and we've been failing consistently.
70 years, actually.
You know, so the notion that somehow the institutions that have been failing at solving this problem for the last 20, 30, 40 years in 2021 or 2022 are going to have an epiphany and fix things. This is
not gonna happen.
this is
So
the
what-
epitome of wishful thinking.
so what do you think should happen?
So I think if you're an investor and you care about reliable, cheap power, you should sort yourself out. Forget about the utility.
Okay, but at a macro level, what should we do about this?
Disband it.
Yeah. You don't even need to disband it. Just liberalize. It can carry on
That's
and
part
and continue to compete,
with
right?
everybody else.
But where I have a problem with the current framework is that they have a monopoly, right? So they have a
Well, they don't. You can generate your own power.
No, they have a monopoly on regulation.
No.
So you have to go through them.
No, if you put a solar panel on your roof, you don't have to go through ZESA.
For now, yeah, you're right, because of what you're producing. But that's not.
Do you think if you had $10 billion and were interested in building an independent?
Okay, yeah. I'm being facetious. The law actually says if you're doing more than 1 meg, you need to go to ZESA and get a license.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the institutions that enjoy the monopoly are doing a terrible job, and in their infinite wisdom, they're saying nobody should compete with them. So at a utility level, I don't see
You
where
can't
progress.
be a regulator and a player.
They're not. There's a regulator called ZESA.
Yeah, and the
Global
player
Energy Regulatory Authority. It's a different body.
but it's still owned by government, right?
It is the government.
Yeah,
and that's the
exactly.
problem.
But ZESA is a different.
And it's owned by
ZESA
yeah.
by the people of Zimbabwe.
Should we go for a break?
Anyway, carry on. Make your point.
No, I think it's time we go for a break.
So look, I think national electricity infrastructure is a pipe dream in this part of the world. It's we need
Could be
an
railway as well. We need
an Econet to come in and disrupt the industry and solve the problem.
Even with railways, I would agree with you. Just
Liberalize,
disband it,
liberalize.
liberalize, and let the market deal with
I mean, Einstein said this, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And so if you think it's an institution that has been failing and failing and failing, somehow has the solution, I've got a bridge to sell you.
I might just want to buy it. Yeah, but maybe this is a good place to end the show. It's been good having you along. I think we've gone into quite a few interesting subjects. I don't know whether it's this beautiful Peaty whiskey or whether the world really is in a crazy state at the moment. And I'm reminded of D.H. Lawrence and Lady Chatterley's Lover. The world is a raving idiot, and no man can kill it. We must rescue ourselves as best we can. If you find yourself taking us seriously, don't.
Try some of this.
Yeah, try some of this. 50% cost strength.
Drink it neat.
Maybe the feeling will pass. COVID is real. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. If you can't be good at it.